Hello, everybody. I'm Toby Shifsky, the Executive Director of Kaplan Real Estate Education, and thank you for coming to our Real Expert webinar. Today, our topic is the Affordable Housing Crusade. Paying off finally? Is it? We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about some of the changes and some of the if you know how when you feel a mood in the room has changed. I think me and our expert, who I'm going to introduce in just a second, feel that the mood in the room has finally changed on affordable housing. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring in our expert, who is none other than Ted Hyland. Ted, good morning, Ted.
Hey.
Hi. Let me introduce you, Ted, because I don't know if everybody knows, but I've worked with Ted for almost, 2 decades. And Ted has got a lot more experience in this industry than I do. Ted is a licensed real estate broker, educator, and author. He has a long history and passion of developing new continuing education courses for real estate. You guys should know Ted has created some of the really our most successful real estate continuing education classes over the last decade. And he's developing new continuing education courses for real estate licensees, including the most recent works that Ted has done, and some of you may have taken it: Repurposing Property, Friend or Foe of the American Dream, right? Solving the Down Payment Dilemma. And for another compelling new course addressing affordable housing, which is why we're here today, New Hope for the Housing Market. So these are continuing education titles that you guys may have access to in your markets to be able to take as continuing education. Ted is the author, so you can say you've met the author. He now brings his enthusiasm and experience here to us today for our Real Expert presentation on this kind of exciting, how do you say exciting for affordable housing? But I think we can kind of say exciting, Ted, right? Let's do this though, Ted. Before we get to you and let you just because you're going to kind of run the show here today, I think it'll be a little different than most of our Real Expert webinars, because I know you got a lot to say. I want to ask a quick polling question. I just want to know who's on here. We have well over 100 people on here, and I want to know who they are so that we can kind of gear this conversation. If we got to talk a little bit more about some of the fair housing pieces and affordable and a little more in the history, or if we can kind of jump into what's really happening today. So everybody get ready. I'm going to ask you a quick polling question. All right. So, and play along. So have your mouse ready and click into this. And here we go. Very first polling question is, how long have you been in the real estate business? Go ahead and throw it up. Everybody take a whack at it. 1 to 4 years, 5 to 10 years, 11 years plus. You are seasoned. You could probably teach this little thing and be an active part of this. Or how about this one? I am almost licensed. For those of you sitting in your real estate classes right now, taking your online course, thank you for being here. We do these every month. And you should know that we try to bring kind of these new, fresh perspectives on topics that may have been around, since the dawn of time. Like I think affordable housing is one of those issues that just kind of has kind of rolled along for years and years and years, and we're going to tackle it today. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. Looks like we've got everybody has answered. And 3, 2, 1, end. All right, here we go. I always share the results, so you get to see. By the way, all these polls are anonymous, so nobody sees who you are. Okay, so it's all anonymous, and thank you for playing along. Look at this, Ted. 1 to 4 years, we got about 20% of the people, 19%. 5 to 10 years, 10%. 11 years plus, 33%.
Yay.
Awesome.
Yay.
Awesome. We got some real horsepower. I expect you people who have been in this business 11 years plus, feel free to add some really kind of insightful comments if you can on the chats as we go along. All right. And then, and questions, ask questions. And then I love that. Almost licensed. Look at 36%. I love it. People just coming into the business and fresh, looking for knowledge. Absolutely awesome. So Ted, thank you for being here. I think you got an idea of who our audience is now.
I do, Toby, and it's really exciting because clearly we've got a lot of people who have a lot of experience in real estate, and I think we got some exciting information for you folks. But even more exciting is for you new people. We're dealing with an incredible environment right now, and you're reading an awful lot about it. I think you're going to get information out of this presentation, out of this program, that's going to give you some tools that'll enable you to deal with this environment that we find ourselves in.
Right.
So
well, let's jump in.
Start.
Yeah, let's jump into it, Ted. Where are we at? Because this is going to go fast. Just for everybody, we got a half hour. But I mean, believe me, we could go. Ted, if you know Ted could go 5 days on this, but I could go a day on this. And so because Ted's got some deep knowledge, and so Ted, where are we at in the housing market today?
Well, according to some people, it's really simple. It's like Econ 101, if any of you took that at any point in time. We don't have enough housing supply, and there's a high level of demand for the amount of housing we do have. So not enough supply, too much demand, skyrocketing prices.
How do we get in this situation, Ted? I mean, how do we do that?
The iceberg, Toby. There's a complex combination of factors that have come together in a perfect storm that led us to where we're at today. But one of the most significant factors, let's just start attacking the biggies, is that we're still building houses today pretty much the way we were back in the 1880s when builders first started using standardized lumber and nailing it together on the building site. That results in a real long lead time from breaking ground to having a finished product. Recently, you did a real expert talk with Adam Hegenrother. That's the name messed up.
Adam, he's coming back too, Ted. He's coming back for another one.
He was fantastic. I watched it. I loved it. He just had a lot of insight.
Yeah.
He's a builder broker. And I wonder if any of our audience was watching that show, because he said something that was real meaningful to me. And that was how long it takes to build a house in today's market. So I wonder, do any of you, if you took that, if you saw that presentation, do you remember how long it was that he said that it took to build a house today?
Let's do this. I'm going to ask another poll question. Does anybody know, right? How long, everybody get a chance to play along again. We try to keep you engaged and active. Once again, put your chats in the chat. We're answering questions as we go along. Let me ask you a question. And this is the poll question. How long does it take to build a home today? Think of a general house. And we're not talking a palace on the hill. And we're not talking, a little tin shack. We're talking about a regular home in your area. How long do you think it actually takes to build a home in general? And I'm going to go ahead and throw a poll question up, everybody. You get a chance to play along. And so here we go. How long do you think it generally takes to build a house? 1 day? Wouldn't that be something? 1 week? 7 or 8 months? A year? In general. Now, I know we got some supply chain stuff going right now, but in general, what do you think it takes? What do you think? Here we go. Oh, yeah, they're piling in now. Look at that. Everybody's responding. Nice. And there's no wrong answer, everybody. Well, although Ted might tell you there is, because Ted's an educator. He's a teacher. He'll tell you if you got it right or wrong. So, all right, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. And we'll share the results. Look at that. Nobody said a day. Love that. A week. Got 2 people. I think they know where you're going, Ted. 7 to 8 months. Almost 80%. 77.92% said 7 to 8 months. And then we got some there say it takes a year. I mean, plain and simple, it takes a year. All right, let's go ahead, Ted. Ted, those that said 7 or 8 months, would you say that's the correct answer, Ted? What do you think?
Well, 7 or 8 months is the right answer using traditional materials and traditional techniques, Toby. But there are actually, this is a trick question. There were actually 3 right answers to that question. But it might come as a surprise to some of our audience that at one point in time, way back in 1947 to 51, there was a builder on Long Island in New York by the name of Levitt & Sons, who built 1 house a day using an assembly line technique similar to an automobile factory. And those houses included, listen to this, an installed washer, dryer, refrigerator, and for your money, he even got a white picket fence.
In a day.
And this guy and his sons ended up building over 17,000 homes in a few years doing that, 4 years. We need a little bit more of that. But it gets better. The other correct answer right now, this moment, is 1 week. And a little bit later in this program, I'm going to be describing to you a new housing development that is breaking ground right now that promises to be able to build a house in a week in one of the hottest housing markets in the country using new technology and new materials. But before we get to that,
yeah,
that's a little tease.
yeah.
You'll stick around now for the latter part of the program too. I want to address one of the other big elephants in the room of why housing prices are so high. And I don't hear anybody talking about this right now to any great extent. Now you're in a rarefied environment there, Toby.
Yeah.
Because Toby's coming to you today from the Minneapolis St. Paul marketplace.
That's correct.
And we'll get to that in a minute as well. But what I'm referring to is what is called single family residential zoning. Because just building more houses is not going to solve the problem. And that's what most of the pundits, that's what most of the talking heads and commentators are saying. We need more houses. Well, that ain't going to do it. It's complex.
Yeah.
It's multi-layered. And we're going to get into that today in the time that we've got available. So,
yeah. Well, you said something, Ted. You said housing values. I mean, I'm just going to look and say, how many people here, if you own a home, put it in the text chat. I'd love to see. Yes, I own a home. I mean, for those of you who own a home, you've had a nice run the last couple of years, right? And so, when somebody says the problem is single family housing, I'm like, the problem is, what are you talking about? Single family housing is the solution because I own a home. And, but like you said, it's complex, right? I mean, it's about cost. It's about density. It's about speed to market with new construction techniques. It's about a lot of things, right?
Well, Toby, you're absolutely on target. And I was out at a pretty nice dinner the other night, and I got to chatting with the fellow at the table next to me. And he had just sold his business, sold his home in the Midwest, coincidentally. And he was traveling around the country, living in Verbos, in vacation rentals by owner. That's his lifestyle now with the money that he got out of selling his house. Here's the deal. If you have owned a house for the past few years, you're in the catbird seat. The rich have gotten richer. Sure. But the problem is, and when I was talking to this guy, he said, when he found out I was in a real estate field, real estate education, he said, what the heck is going on? And I looked him straight in the eye and I said, well, clearly the problem is we've got too many houses. Yeah, and he did just exactly what Toby just did. He looked at me and said, what, are you nuts? Are you crazy?
Yeah.
If you've got a house, the rich get richer.
Sure.
If you don't have a house, the problem is, a part of the problem is just like its name says, single family residential zoning. Is about local governments designating geographical areas or zones where the only kind of improvement on the land is a residence where only one family can live. These zones were first created back in the 20s and the 30s to create and enhance the future value of property. And they did their job well, perhaps even too well.
Yeah.
In my marketplace that I am the most familiar with, which is the San Francisco Bay Area, that's where I was in brokerage. That's where I spent most of my life. Homes that were built in the 1940s and 50s and sold originally for $20,000 to $30,000. And these are just, like Toby was talking about, ordinary homes.
Just one after the other. You drive down the street. They all look the same, right? Small little bungalow, 1 story, 1.5 story, simple stuff.
In my marketplace right now, those homes are selling for an average price of $1.75 million. And Toby, I was talking to a lady from Georgia, Barbara, the other day, and I always ask. I say, "What do average old homes sell for in your marketplace?" She said, "Oh, about $350,000." I was talking to another fella, upstate New York, who's on this call today. I said, what do average old homes sell for and where you are? He says, well, we're way off in the boonies. 150,000. And so people hear those numbers, 1.75 million in California, say, well, my house is never going to be worth that much. My first house was one of those houses. I paid $27,500 for it. And now it's worth over $1 million. When I got into this business, if somebody would have told me that I would have a house that was going to be worth $1 million, I'd say, you're nuts. That's the problem. And it's because we have too many single family residences taking up too much land.
Density, right? It's about density, isn't it? It's about the cost of the land. It's about the amount of the improvements that you have to put in order to improve the land, like sewer, water, roads, fire stations and police. And as you gobble up more and more land, you spread bigger and bigger distance, and it doesn't allow you to maximize, right?
That's exactly it, Toby. Okay. And here's the deal. 85% of the land in our urban and suburban areas, everywhere, Minneapolis, St. Paul, San Francisco, California, doesn't matter, is zoned single family residential. That's really what's limiting the supply. We just don't have enough developable land. So the solution is not just building more houses. A part of the solution is what city planners call exactly what you talked about, and this is the fancy term for it, densification. I can't even say it.
Yeah, I felt dense the first time I tried to say that word. I'm like, I don't think I can get this. It's densification. So the governments are seeing, finally, I mean, this is the part when we started this whole thing off, I said, when the mood in the room changes, you ever been in it and you can just kind of realize, hey, something just happened here. I feel like in the last couple years, literally, the mood has finally changed.
Well, it is in some places. Okay. And the point is that gives us hope that it's going to happen other places. And again, a part of it is the government policy has been the quote unquote American dream.
Single family home. I'm a participant, right?
There
I'm
you go. Yeah. And what has happened is for a large segment of our population, and not just poor people, but relatively affluent people.
Sure.
It's turned into an American nightmare. So a part of what we need to have happen is some modifying and eliminating in some areas of the concept of single family residential zoning. And that's provocative.
That is provocative. So let me just give a personal example, because I think when people, I got to tell you, so in my area, I'm here in the Twin Cities. I'm in St. Paul. I mean, it's a what we call a bedroom community. But here's the thing: the homes have appreciated like crazy over the last several years, and I think the average home price here is like over $500,000 or something like that. But here's the deal: when people talk about affordable housing, I just got a social media post came through from this little local like social media Facebook page, and it says, "Go to the city planning meeting because somebody's trying to put a 90-unit apartment building in."
Yes.
Even though that 90-unit apartment building was approved in a planned development 5 years ago, and this was the last phase of the development, was these apartment buildings. They're like, we don't want the traffic. We don't want that kind of people. Literally, this social media post is saying this. And I think people have this understanding of when you say affordable housing, right? I mean, an affordable housing in San Francisco, look, you were talking about, $1.75 million average home price. Affordable housing there would be something in the $600,000 range. And so I think what people have this conception when my community said, get your pitchforks, get your torches, and we're going to stop this apartment building from going in. They tried to show up at the city council meeting, and they're thinking it's a homeless shelter. And that's what we're creating. We're creating a homeless shelter, and there's going to be all this problem. And it's going to, folks, that's not housing anymore. So,
yeah.
I mean, if that's what you think, that's not it. I mean, we're talking, it's like my kids are now getting to an age where they may be looking to buy a house. They can never afford a house in this community. They couldn't afford to live here. There are no options. There are no apartments. So they have to move 30, 40 miles away.
Yeah.
And so what does it mean when we're saying affordable these days? I mean, I just think the concept has to be understood also.
Yeah. Heidi and Andrew just jumped into the chat, and we're talking about California, and they're absolutely in touch with what is going on in their marketplace. We have had just in the last 2 months a big court case in California involving exactly what you described, a 10-unit building. The local government, it was zoned for multifamily. The local government wouldn't do it because they said, basically, we want to have a single-family residential neighborhood for our people to live in. It was a 10-unit building. It wasn't a big tower. It wasn't 90 units.
Yeah.
And a California appellate court in the case, it's called Carla versus San Mateo, if somebody wants to make a note of it. And then we followed up with legislation that has been in the works for quite a while, and that's SB 9, Senate Bill 9 in California. And we're going to talk about that again a little bit later on in the program. It's very similar to a local ordinance in Minneapolis that got passed 3 years ago. So we've covered a couple of the major kinds of things that are causing the current housing affordability and availability crisis. But I've actually identified, when I say I've identified, we've had a team of 4 experts, 2 real estate licensee experts, 2 attorney experts working on this problem. And we've come up with 13 different factors. And that's not a lucky number.
So it's not one thing, it's not zoning, right? It's not one thing, it's not zoning, it's not gentrification. It's a lot of things.
I mean, we can talk about supply and we can talk about demand.
We've only got 8 minutes left, Ted. We got
8 minutes. Yes. So I'm going to cover 13 in about 1. Okay. How's that?
Yeah. Good.
So what are some of the other things that are resulting in us having 3 million housing units too little? We've got a shortage, what's called a deficit, a housing deficit of $3 million. And it isn't just all
3 million units. Yeah, right.
3 million units. Yeah.
Right.
What did I say? Dollars.
Dollars. I know it's dollars.
I don't know. It's a bunch of money too.
Yeah.
Billions of dollars. So what are the things that are resulting in this, like I said earlier, perfect storm? Well, one of them is investor buying. We are seeing investor activity in the marketplace on a level that we have never seen before. And it's all been in the last 5 to 7 years, in my opinion. First, and probably, I don't know that it's most significant, it makes up about roughly 20% of the housing availability is being taken by what I call institutional investors. And I think Jerry Anderson, in a previous Real Expert, brought this up.
Yeah.
There are entities like, and here are some of the names, and there are a lot of them. See, that's a whole bunch. Invitation Homes, American Homes for Rent, BlackRock, Blackstone, which now owns by itself, one company, 80,000 homes that have been removed from the market. But next, even bigger, huge, I'm not even able to develop numbers on this. The number of individuals who are speculating and investing in property. And social media, of course, gets on top of this. And social media is right now on fire with what's called house hacking.
House hacking. I'm going to learn something new here today. Hit us up. What is house hacking?
Term, it's not a new concept. They just gave a label to it. But house hacking is where an individual either rents or buys property and then rents part or all of it out to cover the cost of the ownership.
Sure.
And if they live in a part of it, the cost of their living there. It's the Airbnb concept, which came along in 2007. And if you don't know the story, it's a San Francisco story.
Yeah.
3 young guys from New York moved to San Francisco to get rich in tech.
Yep.
They rent an apartment. One of the guys gets fed up, says, to heck with it, I'm going back to New York. The other 2 guys can't afford the rent. So they go out and they buy 3 air beds. Honest to gosh, true. 3 air beds, lay them down on the floor because they had noticed that there are a lot of conventions in San Francisco and there are no hotel rooms available. And they put a notice on the web and said, hey, we'll rent you place to sleep for $80 a night.
So you're telling me this. You're telling me this house hacking is people are buying it knowing they can't afford it, and so they're planning on renting out a piece or all of it. So they're just putting out, hey, room for rent,
or
well, creative. I like it. They want to take part in the American dream.
Now, here's the deal, though.
Yeah,
there is legal house hacking, and there's illegal house hacking.
Okay.
And what social media is encouraging is the illegal form of house
How is it?
hacking.
What's illegal? I thought I could own a home and I could rent it out. No?
Yeah, man's house is his castle. Not so.
You can't say that anymore either. Man's house.
Yeah. And Jerry touched on this. Jerry touched on this in he was a finance expert, and he touched on it. You buy a single family residence zoned as a single family residence and take out a loan representing that you're going to use it as your residence. And then you rent it out.
Yeah,
that's what's called mortgage fraud.
Yeah.
And he addressed it. And you do that, it's a federal crime. You can go to jail and you can be fined up to $1 million. And they aren't telling that part. Now, the legal house hacking, traditional real estate investment that we all, as real estate licensees, are familiar with.
Sure.
You go out and you buy a 2 to 4 unit building zoned as multifamily. You go to FHA and get a loan with 3.5% cash down, representing that it's a rental. And guess what? You got to live in one of the units for a year under FHA regs. Now, in some states, you have to live there for 2 years.
How does it solve affordable housing, though, Ted? Because, I mean, in one way, if I'm doing it illegally and I was renting it out to people who couldn't afford a whole house, am I helping the affordable? I mean, how is this hurting affordable housing? Tell me about it.
Well, it isn't hurting affordable housing. It's concentrating the benefits of affordable housing in a speculator, in an investor.
Okay.
And I know our time is short, so just to kind of wrap it up, the marketplace has changed. It's shifted. You started out with that. That's absolutely right. That's actually not a bad thing. The marketplace has always been changing. The key to this is recognizing what the changes are and taking advantage of the changes in a manner which is appropriate and legal to maximize benefits for you.
So on that, Ted, I'm just going to cover Cook. We're going to go about another 3 minutes for everybody who's on. So because I see it. I see the change. I feel this change. Like you said, when the mood changes in the room. I love that we got Andrea here and Heidi putting up talking about the densification and zoning and laws, and really states getting involved, saying, hey, listen, cities, yes, you have domain over your territory. Essentially, you can control your zoning and ordinances, but understand this, you need to be held accountable to those. And in fact, in some cases, states are actually passing new statutes that's controlling the land use, saying, you know what, you need to, and this is that whole, not in my backyard thing. When we talk about higher densities, I'll go back to that apartment building in my neighborhood. It passed unanimously. People are like, no, we are moving forward. We need to create an affordable position within our community because it's a part of a healthy community. And they didn't listen to the not in my backyards, people who really didn't even understand their own zoning and ordinances, and the fact that this developer followed that. And I think what the case in California in San Mateo said was, listen, city, you can't not follow your own city zoning and ordinances when a developer comes in to do. As a matter of fact, California, right, has a statute that says, listen, you absolutely have to follow it. Was it a reasonable adult or an objective adult? You have to follow your own rules, and you can't have homeowners come in with pitchforks and torches and say, not in my backyard. As a matter of fact, it is in your backyard. And so we're seeing this change across the country. Minneapolis, my backyard, changed its zoning ordinances. So in fact, this whole city planning 3 years ago. If nobody knows about this, you should look at it. You should see it. It's the 2040 plan. And I'm starting to see fruit of this, Ted, in Minneapolis. What this fruit is, everybody, what you should know is it went away from kind of controlling square footage and number of units you can put on a lot, and really just made it a mathematical equation that kind of redefined density to the point where a lot that used to only be able to have a single family home on it now can have a 3-unit building on it. And the change is starting to happen. So that happened 3 years ago. We are now seeing homes going in on empty lots. We're now seeing homes being taken down and being replaced with higher density units in Minneapolis. Just starting to see that change. And it's not the McMansion going up. It's a smaller 3 units compiled to make a larger building, but there's 3 units going in there, Ted. We're starting to see this change happening.
And that was Senate Bill 9 in California, allowing a single family zoned property to be divided up into a maximum of 4 units. And again, what that results in is instead of one person partitioning it illegally and renting it out, taking away housing stock, it's creating more housing stock out of the existing housing stock. Just because I know we're out of time, but gosh, I'm so excited about all of you being here and getting this. What we have tried to do is stuff 3 hours worth of information into 30 minutes, and you just can't do it. But the good news is, the hope is that you will take this away, start doing more investigating in your local marketplace, finding out more of what's going on, supporting what's going to make sense so that more people can have affordable housing and available housing.
And here's the thing, Ted, opportunity. For those of you, like, look at all the, I see the chats coming in now for people saying, hey, building ordinance in Boulder, Colorado, municipal code change, California law change, Minneapolis law change. For those people in your areas who are understanding how these laws and rules and zoning are changing and the interpretation of them, there's opportunity there for real estate professionals for guidance, not only, but also opportunity for growth and advancement of your career, being a specialist. I mean, I know right now in Minneapolis, there are people who are figuring out exactly where the opportunities are to put a 3-unit dwelling in where there's a single unit home in right now. And they are understanding it and finding that opportunity. And they're working with legal investors, not hackers, and they're doing it right. And they are carving themselves out quite a niche right now because they understand where things are going. You once told me, Ted, right? You want to make money on something, then how does that go? How does that work when you buy across the street? How did that work?
Yeah, what you want to do is you want to find where the path of progress is headed in your community. And the guy who started the Holiday Inn said, find where the end of the road is, buy real estate on the other side. And that's the concept that we can all do as individuals. The other thing I promised the audience, just real quick, Toby, is the developer who is building homes in 1 week. That's Lennar Homes, which is the world's largest.
We're not paid by Lennar, just so you know, but they are on the cutting edge right now.
Largest home builder in the world has just partnered with a high-tech startup called Icon Technologies out of Austin, Texas. And they are breaking ground right now as we speak on a 100-unit development of 3D printed concrete construction technology homes. And they say that they can put up a house in 1 week. Icon builds the walls in a 3D printer that builds walls 15.5 feet tall in 1 week. At the same time, Lennar finishes all the rest of the stuff, the sheetrocking, all the finish work. 1 week, and they're going to have 100 homes built. Now, we need more of that. But we also need all of these other things and even more that we've been talking about. And then Ted, hopefully the government will not get repressive and just shut everything down.
Yeah, but don't want that. 13 things go into making homes affordable. We talked about a couple. I want to thank you, Ted, for being here. You are a wealth of information and knowledge. Everybody, look for Ted's CE courses and at Kaplan. And by all means, you're going to be able to email him if you have questions later. I'm going to go ahead and throw the title page back up at the end. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us on our Real Expert presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Toby. Thank you, people, for coming.